Oh, hey, YouTube. I didn't know you were back there. Watching Night of the Living Dead. No? Okay. What? You've never seen Night of the Living Dead? Never? Guess we better talk about it first. This movie's really important. It's not your average zombie movie. I'll go get the lights. Yeah, so I was just about to watch Night of the Living Dead. Got my popcorn ready, something to drink, even got some candy. It's a pretty good movie. I know that some of you have seen this. In fact, probably quite a few of you have seen it. This is really pointed mostly towards those that haven't. I would say that this is one of the best horror movies in the last 50 years. And that's saying quite a bit. And one of the strong messages that comes out of here is very unexpected. And that's a big part of it. So, if you're one of those people that have seen this movie, don't tell anybody how it ends. Now, as far as Romero goes, unfortunately, he lost the copyright to this movie. And because of that, it's in public domain. And even though it's considered the grandfather of all zombie movies, George Romero gets credit in name only. Most of the money that comes out of this is just distributed between all the different companies that make versions of this movie. Now, George Romero went on to do several other movies in the series, but Night of the Living Dead is unique because it's where it all started. And from there, lots of other movie makers went on to make movies similar to George Romero's. Night of the Living Dead went on to spawn Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead, Land of the Dead, Diary of the Dead, and most recently, Survival of the Dead. When George Romero did this movie, he did it with John Russo. John Russo, he went on to spawn his other movies based on this. So, in essence, Night of the Living Dead has two different sequels in different movie franchises that branched off of it. Whereas Romero's movies from Night of the Living Dead looked like this, Dawn of the Dead, and then Day of the Dead. John Russo's movies took the name Return of the Living Dead, using the Living Dead section of the movie title instead of the part of the day. So they made this movie. Now, out of zombie movies, I have to say that I like Romero movies, but I actually think Return of the Living Dead is probably my favorite zombie movie. And I think it's because the message in that movie is not the most important part of it. There's not an underlying social commentary or something like that. Instead, it's more about the mythos of being a zombie, laying out the rules of what happens. And to me, I think I saw it during a part of my life where it made it more sense to be afraid of zombies, because now I understood where zombies came from, how zombies were made, and more importantly, how zombies could be killed. Now, Night of the Living Dead covered some of that, but it left too many questions. I think Return of the Living Dead was the first one that tried to answer the questions from the first movie. And it did it very well. In my opinion, and it's a very humble opinion, I think Return of the Living Dead is my favorite personal zombie movie. I don't think it's necessarily the best out there, but I think it's my favorite. Now, as far as watching zombie movies, you might find yourself liking Night of the Living Dead and wonder, what else could I watch? Besides Romero's movies, which there's a slew of those, including lots of remakes. There's also lots of movies that are similar, that actually take a different stance on zombieism. Namely, movies like Serpent and the Rainbow. This is Wes Craven's take on zombies, and it's very realistic. One of the fears in this movie is, how can you stop from becoming a zombie? And once you are a zombie, what will people do? And looks at it from a cultural standpoint of long legends about people becoming zombies or the Walking Dead. So that's really a fun movie that takes a different approach. Then you also have lots of movies that are more realistic. This is a foreign film that's really good. It's called REC, or some people call it REC. This is both the original and the sequel. That spawned an American remake called Quarantine. I think that's a pretty good movie because it takes a completely different approach. REC, or REC, starts off as a typical zombie movie and it changes. And by the second sequel, there's a completely different mythos that's not the same as Romero. Another zombie movie series that's really, really famous for doing something that no other zombie movie did up until that point, or at least never did it famously, is 28 Days Later, 28 Weeks Later, turn the zombie in from a slow, crouching, cumbersome creature into a fast-moving, maniacal creature, much more like a rabid dog. From there, we have lots of fun spin-offs, including ones based on video games. Resident Evil has lots of zombies in it. Then you have fun movies that are based on the mutation factor of it, like Planet Terror. And then ultimately, you get what a lot of people think of as modern zombies as every part of American culture, including in comedies, or ones where people have zombie sidekicks, like in Idle Hands, or people just take other people's bodies by possession and end up being like zombies, like in Monkey Bone, or when a movie has nothing to do with zombies but just happens to have one in there anyway, and as time goes on, it gets a little gross, like an American Werewolf in London. So, as you can see, between that, Corpse Bride, Zombieland, and even Michael Jackson's Thriller, you end up seeing that there's a whole slew of zombie movies throughout the culture. Over the course of this month, I think we should talk about more zombies. And that's the reason why I'm going to dedicate the whole month of April to talking about different kinds of things related to zombies. This week we talked a little bit about movies, namely where it all began with Night of the Living Dead. Now there are older zombie movies than Night of the Living Dead, but none of them are like what we think of as zombies today. The zombies that we're going to see over the course of April all start about 1968. And that's when the dead come back from the grave. Some of them are fresh, some of them are old, some of them are slow, some of them are fast, and that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about all the different varieties of the modern zombie, and then also the different disputes that people have over which ones they prefer. In the comments below, I would say that a majority of you would comment one way or another on 3 major topics related to zombie movies. 1. Should a zombie be fast or should a zombie be slow? This is something that's argued over and over again between all the zombie fans who stand on one side of the fence or the other. Number 2. Is a zombie a supernatural or is it a biological thing that takes hold of a body and brings it back to life? This is another thing that people like to argue because you have movies like The Evil Dead, which takes possessions of bodies but is completely supernatural compared to the biological nature of other zombie films. And number 3, we will argue whether or not zombie movies in general are overdone. A lot of zombie fans now are not eager to see any new zombie films. And one of the reasons why is they think that the genre is flooded with zombies. Now, this is either a good thing if you're a super fan that watches every movie, or it's a bad thing if you think that a lot of the zombie movies out there today are not as good as the ones before. Is there anything left in the zombie world that hasn't been done yet? I'd like to think so. And that's the reason why we're going to talk about it this month on the YouTube Refugees. So if you'll come back next week, we'll talk about some more zombie things. And if you like the little opening intro that we did here, I'm thinking about doing a big long skit, maybe a full-length video about zombies. And if you'd like to see that, comment down below. Let us know. Once again, thanks for watching the YouTube Refugees. Goodbye.
Coming to get you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're ignorant.
They're coming for you, Barbara.
Stop it! You're acting like a child.
They're coming for you. Look, there comes one of them now.
He'll hear you.
Here he comes now. I'm getting out of it.
John,